Is your camera turned the right direction? I can't. It looks sideways.
Oh, it's got you right.
Oh, it's on the owl. Thank you. Okay. Okay, you ready? Staff ready? Ken, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Independent City Council meeting. It's Tuesday, June 13th, 2023 at 6:30 in the evening. Let the record show the council members are all present. Before we get to minutes, I'm going to make a minor change in the agenda. A couple of them. First, we're going to add the urban renewal budget to after the city council budget. We'll go to the urban renewal agency and put that in there. So we're doing budgets with budgets. Okay. And then also to inform you that the age-friendly community presentation has been rescheduled. So want just you to know that. Council members, you have minutes from the May 9th and then the work session on the 24th. And do they make with your approval?
I move to approve both as written.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We're going to have some visitor comment now. Just to remind everybody, it's a 5-minute limit, and the council is here to listen. We're not going to be engaging in conversation back and forth, but we're here to listen and hear. And just if anybody's commenting on the budget, there will be a separate opportunity to respond then. If anyone wants to talk about the ordinance related to camping in public, there'll be an opportunity to speak at that time also. So this is to speak on anything else. So with that said, Jason Greenwood, I think you're the first person. Good evening and welcome to council.
Hi, thank you, Mayor. Is this good? My name is Jason Greenwood. I own Divine Distillers. I think all of you know me and have seen me. For those who don't know me, the reason for me coming here and coming forward is based on me requesting a variance or change an exception to parking regulations. I've been working with Fred Evander with the city on several different paths forward. We have a very narrow path forward for us. I know that I have sent all the documentation. If you have any questions about the documentation, I would like to, at some point, either during this meeting or next meeting, if we haven't had a resolution to my problem, to have a vote on it, because I'm asking for a parking exception to the parking rules. Currently, we have a parking regulation that stipulates a certain amount of land use. We do not currently use that land. We are required to have a certain number of parking spaces based on the size of our building. I feel that that request or that number is invalid for what we currently do. My employees take up all of 7 people, and finding parking for 17 seems excessive. And that's my basic argument, is putting in parking space for 17 plus 2 drive aisles when I have 7 employees seems a little excessive. Like I said, Fred and I have been working together to try and figure out a way out. We believe we have a solution. I'm in the process of trying to figure that solution out, but if I don't have an answer, I should have an answer early next week. I'm probably going to ask for an exception from the city council, because otherwise my business will go under, because there is no way that we can afford to do the work that is being asked. And I would really rather not have that happen.
Thank you for coming and visiting with us this evening. Appreciate it. Thank you. Alex Lamberas from Monmouth. Good evening, welcome to the Independent City Council.
Hi guys, I'm working
You're okay.
Yeah, let's see.
All right.
See you guys. You guys, my name's Alex. I'm from Monmouth. Like you said, I'd like to share an experience I had recently. I called on 2 city council members in Monmouth to speak to them privately about the homeless shelter that's proposed in Monmouth. They went ahead and let me know that they had to let the other members know that they were gonna speak to me, and it was okay. As long as people knew what was as long as the city council knew and everything was out in public, it was okay to meet with me and discuss the homeless shelter that is proposed to go in there. It shouldn't go there. But I want to talk to you about an experience I had with one of your board members, Shannon Core. I used to belong to a private Facebook group, anti-racist, anti-hate, and I went on there one day and it said, Alex Umbreras, sleazy, slimy. There was a video that was posted of Councilwoman Dawn, and she was at the meeting in Monmouth. This video said, with Dawn's email address and Shannon's email address, to please write this person, listen to how she talks, listen to the tone of her voice, write to her, let her know what you think. I wrote email to Dawn, and I tagged and I CC'd Shannon, and I said, thanks for your service, Dawn. I don't think that shelter needs to go there, but I do want to let you know that you're being filmed as a private citizen in another community by someone that's, who knows what the deal is. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So when I got kicked out of the group, I noticed Shannon Core wrote to the administrator of that group and said, I sent you a private message. I was deleted after that. Right after that, Cease Kuntz from Monmouth said, do not let TJ Smith into this group. We don't want him here. And those are homeless groups. Those are people that want these homeless groups. And I just want to say that these things don't belong here, and a council person has to be neutral up until the very end, and to plot against another council member and undermine what all of us do is just food for thought. I have a lot more thoughts. I'm losing, I don't know what I'm almost done. I guess I'm done. Anyway, thank you for your time, all of you, and if you guys have any questions, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No
Thank you.
shelter.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, so moving forward, council members, I have my report in your packet, council members. You have an appointment to the Independence Days Commission. In your packet, it was incorrectly listed as Parks and Recreation. It's actually supposed to be for Tino Vanzuelos to join the Independence Days Commission and to make that appointment. Would anybody make that action happen, please?
Yes, I move to approve the appointment of Tino Banuelos to the Independence Days Commission as submitted.
Second.
I have a second from.
All over the place.
Yeah. Joe, I have a motion second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed. Motion carries. Thank you very much. I have a brief report that I just want to let you know that had the pleasure of meeting, there was a number of people here for an ag tech meetup and reception. I had a chance to, there were people from all over the United States that were here, and it was a great event, and I had the chance to welcome folks. Had a number of meetings with the League of Oregon Cities and Council of Governments as we try to move a legislative agenda forward. Also met with Senator Patterson, moving our, making sure that she continues to know about our infrastructure requests. Had a chance to participate, I attended, the Veterans Memorial event that happens monthly down there. Billy and the whole group are involved. Attended Stan Peterson's memorial this last weekend. He was amongst other things in our community, a host of things in our community. He was also a chaplain for both the firefighters and for the police officers, and so he did a great job on that. As you know, I'm a volunteer with the food bank, and in the last 24 hours, they've taken care of more than 100 families, which is 400 to 500 people. And I had a chance to be a volunteer at Touch a Truck, the Gentle House event at Western Oregon University, the last day of school event yesterday, which there were hundreds of kids, and the letter carrier food drive. I'm really good at lifting and carrying and handing out things. And so, and slightly humorous, and I got the opportunity to be one of the judges at the Peacock Calling Contest at the Peacock Festival in Monmouth. So that's a little bit of what yours truly has been up to. I'm going to go to our city manager now and let her make her report, please.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, I'll try and keep it short, and I'm told my voice doesn't carry, so I'm going to try this. We have a long agenda tonight, so I will keep this as short as I can. First, welcome to all of our community members. Thank you for coming. It's always nice to have you join us. We are moving forward on our sidewalk workforce project. Our hope is to actually begin that project in the middle of July. We're really, really excited. We're working with a number of partners, and we are just working at the staff level to get that information ready to go out and to all of our community members. So thank you, Council, for giving us the green light to go ahead and work on that project. A couple of fun events. Our entire summer series lineup can be found on the city website. Thursday, July 13th is our first movie, Disney's Jungle Cruise. Fridays, the 14th is our first concert, and that is Eagle Eyes, the Eagle Tribute Band. These are always, as you know, well attended, and it's a wonderful time. So I hope everyone will come and join us at those first two events, and then check the website for the rest of them. Very importantly, the city now has a safe exchange zone at City Hall. It is right behind City Hall. There's 2 parking spots, and they're labeled. Those zones are for child exchange during child custody exchange, parent transfers, and for e-commerce exchange. They are monitored 24 hours, and it is a safe zone. Independence Day's wristbands are now on sale. Each wristband is $5. You can get them at City Hall, the library, the museum, Independence Hotel, and Polk County Fire District number 1. All locations are cash only except City Hall and the hotel, which can take cash, debit, and credit cards. 4th of July is right around the corner. Get your wristbands. Now, we're going to hear more about this, but I want to let you know we have a couple of wonderful members of our community, and I'm going to get their name wrong because I've never met them. But I have a feeling I might have just met them. Mr. and Mrs. Fugman, I think. Did I pronounce it correctly? So these wonderful people contacted our mayor and said, we need a bench. And we started working with them and said, okay, you know, our parks fund is a little on the poor side. What do you think? And they said, you know what? We'll pay for it. Not only did these great people pay for 1 bench, they paid for 2 benches. These 2 benches are going to be put up in our path so that people have a place to sit and to rest as they're walking along the pathway. What an amazing community we have, right? What amazing community members. We're working with Emmanuel, and we're going to have something go out once those benches are in place. And to say thank you and to let our community know what great people we have. But Mayor, if I may, would you like to say anything? All right.
Well, before our city manager can, thank you. I did get your email and put it in the right people's hands, and thank you very much. There are times when all of us who are out walking, or as the dog is taking me for a walk, that I could use a chance to let the dog rest. And so thank you very much. We really do appreciate it, and we look forward to, we'll have a little event when it's done.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I'll end on that, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Moving forward, we have There is a finance report in the packet. It was a staff report. There wasn't planned to be an oral presentation. It's just there. It's informational. It was very dense and provided lots of information. So unless there's a burning question right now, we're going to keep moving. Okay. Mr. Evander, we have to make a decision here on an annexation hearing.
Yep, so basically this is really simple. What I'm asking you tonight is just to set a date for a public hearing. Basically under state law, we can set a date for a public hearing when you elect to dispense with submitting the question of the proposed annexation to the electors of the city, and you fix a date for a public hearing. Now, I don't know if this is typically how we do this, but we don't really have a whole lot of provisions related to annexation within our code, and so I just went to state law and am trying to essentially just follow that process. So this is to ask you folks to dispense with that question, with submitting that to electors in the city, and to set a public hearing date of July 11th. It would be for 5 acres at the north end of Stryker Road that is currently bound on almost 3 sides by the city. Are there any questions?
Questions, go ahead.
And what is proposed to go there?
Right now, it is proposed to be zoned heavy industrial. Someone has purchased the property and they are cleaning it up. Right now, they have not, they would like to put essentially an outbuilding to store products that they're producing. So.
Like a store or?
No, it's an industrial use. It's actually West Coast Metals from out here on the highway. And right now, at this point, they're just talking about potentially putting 1 building up. This will not talk specifically about the use of the land. That would be part of a separate site design review potentially in front of the Planning Commission. This is solely to discuss whether or not the property should be in the city or not.
Okay. Does anybody have an objection to the July 11th date for a hearing? I'm going to do this by consensus. Without objection, so ordered. Thank you.
Perfect.
Karen, you good? Thank you. Okay, moving forward. We have budget adoption, and Ms. West, I think it's to you and your cohort.
It is, Mayor. I'll actually make my, gives me that face.
So I'm going to open the public hearing here with your staff report.
Yeah,
And
okay.
then, staff report first, and then if anybody wants to make comment, then that'll be the opportunity.
Perfect.
So I'll open a public hearing on the budget.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, this was a little bit of a unique budget year, and our budget officer is Chief Mason. He couldn't be here. The budget was prepared as a budget team, which was Chief Mason, Public Director Gerald Fisher, and myself. And then Rob came in and made sure that we did it all right. Rob is our financial consultant. Rob Moody is with Marina and Company, who's one of the partners. He is, I would say, one of the most sought after financial consultants in the state, and we're very, very lucky to have him. So I'm gonna go ahead and let him take the lead on the budget, and I'm just gonna sit right back there in case we need anything.
Great, thank you. Mr. Mayor and Council, thanks again. The budget was approved by the Budget Committee at their meeting, I forget the date.
In May.
In May, thank you. And so before you have a copy of that approved budget. In preparing that approved budget, we identified a handful of what we would term Scribner's errors, and they're summarized for you in a staff report as well as an attachment that I think showed the ins and outs. These were simple errors that occurred during the compilation of the budget, and in putting together that document, we wanted to get those corrected. Because the budget was approved as it was shown to them, that approved budget is what you see before you. What we'll do is we'll make these corrections and adjustments with the adoption if the council so chooses. I'd be happy to just summarize those corrections for you if you'd like. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to, if you could, like, make it clear, the $327,210, that isn't found money, that was
No.
money that was already.
No, it was just simply shown on a line as a reserve for future expenditures when it should have rolled to the fund balance line. It ends up in the same place either way.
Thank you.
So, thank you for asking. So there was that correction. There was an interfund loan that was anticipated in the original budget as it was proposed from the Economic Development Loan Fund to the General Fund. It was later determined based on kind of going through the document that loan was unnecessary. We got part of it out of the document, missed part of it. So this is just cleaning that up. There's also the payment from Minet to the city. Again, it was kind of in, and then it was out, and then it was in, and all of those conversations and adjustments were taking place during the budget build. So it was inconsistently treated in the budget as approved. So again, we're cleaning that up, making sure that the ins equal the outs, if you will. There was a misclassification of revenues. The in lieu of taxes payment was included down under charges for services when it really should be, or intergovernmental revenues, when it should be up with the property tax section. No change really, it's just where it's shown in the document.
Rob, before you get too further down, I'm sorry, I want to go back to number 2 quickly.
Sure.
About the interfund loan from economic development. That was not picked up when the economic development director did his review, and I'm a little concerned about how that sum of money kind of got misplaced or.
Well, what happened was it was shown, I'm gonna try and remember if it was, which side of it got picked up. So it was originally shown as coming out of Economic Development Loan Fund and into the general fund.
Mm-hmm.
When we determined it wasn't necessary, we took it out of the Economic Development Loan Fund, so that was correct. What happened is we didn't get it out of the transfers into the general fund at that point.
Okay, so Sean had those numbers when he
Yep.
did his projections, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, this wasn't a Sean problem, this was a Rob problem,
Gotcha.
I'll own that. And then finally, there was just a formula error in the spreadsheet that the budget was built in, number 5 there. The correct detail was in the back, but in the summary that y'all saw up front, if you look, the numbers just didn't tie. So we've corrected that in the summary. Are there any other questions? Again, I apologize. I know this is a little bit confusing, but there were a lot of hands in this one. So I think we've got it all cleaned up now, and we'll be able to make all of those adjustments upon approval or adoption.
Mayor, is this the point at which we could discuss the budget, or is that going to come after a motion?
After the,
Gotcha.
so I'm going to let the continuing staff report, and then we'll have a public comment, and then we'll have a discussion.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. West.
Mayor and council, trying to figure out the best place for this.
I know you're going to have a discussion, I expect you're going to have a discussion about our layoffs. And a couple pieces of information that I think you need to know. Excuse me if I'm a little ahead, Mayor, I'm not sure where this discussion should go. Do you want this now?
Yes,
Yes.
This is all part of the staff report.
Beautiful. So this came after the staff report, this information came after the staff report. There are a couple of positions that were in layoff. 2 of those individuals have found other jobs and will not be with the city no matter what you do with the budget. They're at those other positions.
Are you talking about the library?
That's one of them, yes. And then the other is in economic development. So
Is it economic development or community engagement?
that's under economic
Oh, excuse me,
development.
my error.
That's okay, that's all right. So those are the two positions. They have found other positions outside the city, and the library position, because it's not funded for the next fiscal year or the year after the next fiscal year, we don't have the funding for that. If we did open a position, it would have to be a limited duration position. We're concerned that we won't find anybody, but again, because we don't have the funding for any more than 1 year. And that is if you adjust the budget.
Kenna, if you did a limited duration, is that the third part-time FTE we're talking about, or is that just a solution for all of the layoffs at the library?
No, that is just one, just one, and it is just one part-time position.
Gotcha.
Additional questions for staff at this moment? Okay, we're going to go to the public hearing on this. If anybody has something they want to say about the budget, this is the time to say it. I don't see a rush to the microphone. Okay, and there's also, if anybody wants to make any public comment about state revenue sharing, we have to ask about that. I don't see anybody rushing that wants to say anything about state revenue sharing. So with that, I'm going to close the public hearing, and we're now going to we have a budget in front of us, and it is an action item. Somebody wants to?
I move to approve resolution number 23-1584, a resolution adopting the City of Independence budget for fiscal year 2023-24 in the sum of $38,212,179, to approve appropriations in the amount of $37,581,442, to impose the ad valorem property taxes for 2023-24 at the rate of 4.5897 per 1,000 of assessed value for the permanent rate, and in the amount of $233,549 for debt service of the general obligation bonds, and to categorize the taxes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Yes, I would like to move that we amend this budget and use 10% of our contingency to fund the library. I have often been told that things cannot happen and it's going to be difficult, but that's never stopped me from doing it in the past. This is an emergency situation for our town and for the kids in our town. We need to have the library open. I do not care that it'll be difficult to find someone to fill that limited duration position. It needs to be found. We need to have the library open. We are 2 to 3 years behind in reading in this community, and if we shut down our library and do not have it open as much as we possibly can, we are not doing what the kids and people in our community need. So I am asking the council to please use 10% of our contingency to fund the library.
I have a motion. Is there a second? I hear no second. The motion does die for lack of a second. Now back to the main motion. Is there further discussion on the budget?
Yes, I don't know what my feelings are on the contingency, because I know there's concern if something horrible happens in the city, we won't have the funds to deal with it. I've only had one individual reach out to me about the library since the last budget meeting, and but I've had a significant number of people reach out to me about the community development manager, the community engagement manager position. After reading the contingency paperwork that you provided in the packet, Kenna, it is indeed a very dense and comprehensive explanation. I'm not entirely convinced that that's enough money to do what we need to do to shore up these 2 vacancies. The one person that did reach out to me about the library said, could we close another day besides Saturday? Her second question was, can't we find this little bit of money somewhere? So my solution, or at least my recommendation at this point, is can we possibly phase in the interfund transfer issue? Instead of entirely omitting interfund transfers this year? Can we do a phased approach for next year? I understand we're just kicking the can down the road when we do this. We're not solving the problem, and the community is going to have to come to some agreement with what we do at some point in time, or they're going to have to tell us what we can cut. So I would like to put forth the motion that we phase in the interfund transfer so that we can fund the library and fund the community engagement position, understanding that individuals moved on. Because I feel like that position in particular, although I'm a huge supporter of the library, that position in particular, we heard lots of comment in the budget committee meetings, and I've heard significant comment thereafter. And this individual, granted, we're not talking about people, we're talking about positions, but this individual has had an enormous impact on our community. And I feel like we're letting part of our community down significantly if we don't try to do something. And I understand that the fallback is going to be to try to cover that position with a number of people who speak Spanish on the staff. And I think that's a feasible game plan going forward, but that needs to be a permanent position at some point in time.
So what I heard is and I'm just for clarification, you wanted to phase in the interfund, and then for the community engagement and library, is that essentially?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, that is a motion. And before I, Kenna, you're
Mhm.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I may,
where I was going to wait for a second. Does clarification help before we try to go to a second?
we would need an amount in order to adjust the budget, a specific amount to put back into the transfers. And I assume we're talking, maybe I shouldn't assume, I should ask, are we talking about the transfers from Public Works to the general fund as we've done in the
Yes.
past? So, okay, we would need an amount in order to be able to make that adjustment to the budget on adoption.
Is there not a line item for what the community manager salary and benefits is? And I realize we're probably only talking part of one FTE to the library, but I can't come up with those numbers myself.
Yeah, I don't know what those numbers are off the top.
Wouldn't it be close to the $136,000?
I mean, we could absolutely pick a number that would cover that.
And this would cover the,
Well, let me look to our city manager here.
Mm-hmm.
Mayor, can we do this in two steps? Councilor Ford's motion to phase in the interfund loan, and if that passes, then we need another motion for the actual amount.
Is that acceptable, Councilor Corr?
Yes.
Okay, I have a motion.
Would you restate that, please?
The motion is to phase in interfund loans to cover the community engagement and library staff. Is that a fair characterization?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, that's the question that's on. So that is a motion. I'm not hearing a second.
I'll second it.
I do have a second. Okay, we now are into discussion.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, this is discussion. You're fine.
My understanding, my understanding is if we continue this practice of taking money from Public Works, from the utility funds and things, we will not qualify for loans that we need to have to work on our infrastructure. That was something we discussed at the budget meetings, is that if we continue this poor practice that has put us in this situation in the first place, we are not going to be able to take the loans and do the work in the city that needs to be done for the infrastructure that is at capacity. I don't know how near failing we are, but we are there. So that's correct?
That is correct. I will say the motion that was made is to take the interfund loan from the economic development loan fund, not from Public Works.
I'm sorry.
So we said Public Works, but is it a possibility to take it from economic development instead?
Well, no, Public
Okay.
Works, I mean,
I'm sorry, did I misstate
no,
that?
you're okay. So we're talking about Public Works, and we need done in the past to general fund. So I want to make sure you are correct. If we continue to do that, what we heard from the funders is that that is not best practice. Well, we speak of best practice, right? But not best practices in in fact were told previously that
I just, again, I was trying to clarify the source of the funds.
Right.
Whether it's a transfer or.
So what is the source again? Because it was stated two different ways, I believe. The source that,
As I have it, the source of the fund would be from Public Works as had been done in previous times. And it was going to be an allocation, not a loan. That's what I understand. Is that correct, Shannon?
That was what I said, but if that's not correct, or if
Well,
it should be stated
It's all right.
differently, okay.
Okay, because, you know,
we're just clarifying.
yeah, we're
Not a budget person.
understood. Okay, so that's where we are. We are in discussion. Other comments? I'm going to make a comment. And I love the library. And I love what our community engagement manager is doing. But I'm also very concerned about the sustainability of this, and pushing it down another year doesn't help, because nothing gets cheaper, because employee roll-up costs are going to continue in the years to come. And if we do this year, then what will we do next year? Because the numbers are not going to get any better. And so I am opposed to this and will vote no if forced to on this. So I just want to be very, very clear. And I respect the intensity and the sincerity of my colleagues who are trying to thread a difficult needle. And there is no joy in some of this. I want to make very clear, but seeing it differently. Additional comments, please.
Patrick, may I put you on the spot for a moment? So I guess my question would be that were we to do as Councilor Corr is suggesting and reinstate a limited duration, 0.5 FTE, does that keep the library open on Saturdays?
I would honestly need to look at the numbers that way. It's not necessarily the FTE that we would gain back. It's the people that then also have to cover that. We only have so many people. We can't have
Understood.
5 people for that hour. It has to be bodies in the building. So there would have to be some shuffling done that way. If you give me 5 minutes, I might be able to jot some numbers down, but off the top of my head, I'm.
And I know I absolutely just put you on the spot at the last moment unexpectedly, so I apologize for that, just trying to go to the most knowledgeable source.
I understand, yeah. We would be gaining back one body of the 3 that work Saturday, and so there would need to be some shuffling done other ways, and whether or not that's feasible with benefits or hours that we're limited our other part-time staff to, I'm not sure.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Additional comments?
I have an additional question also for
Councilor Schwartz.
Patrick. Patrick will probably help. Thank you. What is the possibility of being able to leverage volunteers to add capacity? Is it someone?
Volunteers can help out with programming and other events that happen there due to CCRL. So I'll try not to use library jargon there. The consortia that we're a part of,
Sure.
they are not trained to access personal records or information, so they're not able to check out or place things on holds or do any of the behind the desk library work for people at this point.
Yep, thank you.
Additional comments?
And I believe my next question is probably for Kenna. So by doing a loan or a transfer, if memory serves me correctly, it's the USDA loans, I believe, that we're putting at risk that provide us substantially lower interest rates for infrastructure projects?
That's what we were told, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Roden, you requested to speak.
Yes, so I'm disappointed that, well, one is I brought it to staff 2 weeks ago that I wanted to use the contingency to save the library. Didn't know anything about wanting to bring back the interdepartmental loans, which would have been great so that we would have more information. If that would have been brought forward sooner, maybe that would have been best for council, but you didn't know that until this evening? Okay, so, you know, it kind of makes this huge budget kind of balance on this, not kind of withholding information until the last minute. And it would help us all if we could all just be more, you know, more thoughtful into these considerations, because if we could debate this and look into taking the contingency money, then we wouldn't have to worry about the USDA loans, and we would have a we would just use this money. And I know it's frustrating for people that we're using contingency money, but contingency money is meant for emergencies. And I wouldn't be asking for it if this wasn't an emergency.
I just want to be clear that after you and I visited the last council meeting, I did pass this on to our staff, and they provided the information, let them know that what your concern and thought was, and then I provided that to staff, and then they have made their best professional recommendations moving forward. Are there additional comments on this? Councilor Court.
I just have a question based on what Councilor Roden said. Was there information we weren't provided? I don't know of any.
No.
What am I missing?
No.
It's on page 13 of your packet.
10% was brought to our attention, we knew that's coming up, so we created an informational report for everybody. It's in your packet, and it's out on all of our various, so everyone's seen it. That's the information that we had. And we provided that.
I recall requesting that in the budget committee meeting, so thank you for that, yeah.
Additional comments? Please.
One final comment. I'm trying to take a higher viewpoint on this. It's very hard when we're dealing with people that are being laid off because, as we've said before, we know them in person, we know them as individuals. But as council members, our job is to do the very best job that we can do as good stewards of the city's funds. And the city has a staggered obligation to its populace. And one of the most important things that the city provides to the residents is infrastructure. And it's not sexy, but we have to make sure the toilets flush and that the water runs, and that's a more important cost in the long run for the happiness and the well-being of the citizens.
Unless there's additional comments to be made. Okay, we are going to vote on the amendment to phase in interfund allocations for community engagement and library. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I have Coeur and Roden with aye, and opposed.
Nay.
Nay.
That's 4-2. Karen, did you get all that?
So
That was Schwartzler, Morton, Martin Willis, and Job as no. The motion's defeated. We now move to the main motion, which is the approval of the resolution for the budget. We have it in front of us. Is there anything else left to say about this? If not, I want a point of clarification, please. In the resolution that you have that is included in the packet, I'm assuming that includes all the minor details that you had included. Is that correct? Thank you. I do appreciate that. So with all in favor of approving the budget as outlined in the packet, signify by saying aye.
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 And opposed.
Oppose.
Roden votes no. Motion carries. Thank you very much. I'd like to move on to the next motion to approve, to elect to receive state revenues for fiscal revenue sharing. I think everybody's in favor of saying yes, so that the state will send us a check.
I move to approve resolution number 23-1583, a resolution to elect to receive state revenues for fiscal year 2023-24.
Second?
I have a motion second by Martin Willis. Is there discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, motion carries. Now, council, as I mentioned previously, what I'm going to do here is we're going to recess the, did I get everything there, Karen? Yes, okay, thank you. I'm going to recess the city council meeting for a few moments while we do the urban renewal budget. Without objection, we're going to recess, no objections. We are now in recess. I now officially open the City of Independence Urban Renewal Agency. All the members are here, and the minutes of the June 14th, 2022 meeting is in your packet. And do they meet with your approval?
Move to approve minutes as received.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. Visitor public comment. Anybody want to comment on the turn any information on the urban renewal budget? I see a hand out in the audience. I'm going to recognize you. Please come to the front, sir. And if you state your...
Thomas, 246 B Street.
Thank you.
The urban renewal district is based on blight. And I want to know when the city's going to put sidewalks on either side of Polk Street from Hoffman Road to Main Street. It's absolutely criminal that poor people have to walk in the street to go to the closest convenience store. My second issue is that I heard lots of rumors about the empty lot owner behind Moodhart's Market was putting that into the hat as a place for homeless people. We live on B Street. We endured the homeless folks yelling at each other, swearing at each other across the street for 5 months last summer. And, multiply that by 20 times, and you're gonna have a problem selling downtown Independence, which the city's 40 million bucks in debt, paying $1.5 million a year in interest, or general figures, to support all the good things that have happened. And I can't imagine why you'd dump a pile of excrement right on top of it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Kenna, did you want to make a comment? Because there's rumorism flowing.
On that lot, certainly, Mayor, I can.
Because we've all heard rumors, and I'd like to debunk that, please.
Okay, in regard to that lot, the information that I have is twofold. We've received nothing at the city in our planning department or anywhere in the city regarding a shelter or anything else going on that lot. So there's nothing formal that has come in at all. Secondly, I touched bases this morning in another meeting with an individual who is tied to Church at the Park, and at that time, he had absolutely no information that that was going to be going forward here in Independence. The only information they had was a discussion about Monmouth. So at this point, from the two areas that I could pull, one from our formal processes and one from an informal process, there is nothing going forward that we're aware of in that area.
Thank you.
So lots of rumor, no fact at this point.
It's privately owned, is it not?
Yeah, that's privately owned. And the reason I took this opportunity is that rumorism, there's lots of rumorism, and there's no basis in anything. So we have the budget adoption for the Urban Renewal Agency. Did anybody need to make any staff report there? Because we did this in the budget committee, and it's just allocating the funds to be spent that are already in. Okay, is there anybody that wants us to respond in public hearing on the urban renewal budget? I don't see a horde of people rushing to the microphone, so without objection, I'll close the public hearing. And then we have the urban renewal budget in front of us, and if someone would make the motion, I would appreciate it.
I move to approve resolution number 2023-01, a resolution adopting the Independence Urban Renewal District budget for fiscal year 2023-24 in the sum of $3,376,649 to approve appropriations in the amount of $3,376,649 and to declare and certify the maximum tax increment that may be raised.
Second.
Motion second, discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed?
Opposed.
Roden is opposed. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Without objection, we're going to adjourn the Urban Renewal District. We are adjourned to the Urban Renewal District. I now reopen the City Council meeting, and we're moving on to, let me get the right piece of paper in front of me here. We're now moving to dealing with Council Bill 2023, amends Independence Municipal Code compliance with ORS 1955.505 and 195.530, camping on public property. Ms. West and Ms. Conley, I think you have this. Good evening, welcome to council.
Mayor and council, I'm very fortunate to turn this over to our legal counsel, Carrie Connolly. As with our financial consultant, our legal consultant is one of the best in the state. You had a work session on this, and Carrie will just do a very quick summary, and then we'll move forward.
And so I can just make sure everybody knows, we're going to hear a staff report first, and then if there are people who have public comment to make, I will be allowing that after the staff report, and then we'll move to action. So, Ms. Conley.
Thank you for having me back. It's been a while since I've been in this room in person. We did meet at the end of May for a work session with the council, public meeting, to discuss why the council is considering these code amendments this evening. As a short recap, in 2019, there were Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals case law that determined that the consequences of being human cannot be penalized. That includes sitting, sleeping, lying, keeping warm and dry on public property, otherwise open to members of the public. If you penalize that activity and the individual has nowhere else to go, no alternative location to go, that's cruel and unusual punishment, which violates the federal constitution. The Oregon legislature took that direction. It's in two different cases, Martin v. Boise, and then a later Grants Pass case. And the state legislature in 2021 took that case law, they tried to codify it. So they passed HB 3115, which is now actually codified in state statute at ORS 195.530. And it is effective July 1st, 2023. So I remember talking to you long ago, thinking we have some time. That time has, we're right at the end of our timeline. And the requirement under that state law is that any county or city law that unreasonably regulates sitting, lying, sleeping, keeping warm and dry on public property that is otherwise open to members of the public can be a basis for a lawsuit against the city. And if the city receives written notice of the lawsuit and fails to amend its code, the city could be held responsible for attorney's fees in the event that that challenge is successful. So that started a process of reviewing all city codes in the state of Oregon, which is culminating in this effort to amend provisions of your code to ensure that provisions within your code are reasonable from the objective of an unhoused individual. And we think we have a pretty good balance. We talked it through in the work session, recommendations of staff to council to bring back in ordinance format, which we have before you tonight. We have a final version for action. We have a track change version in the event you'd like to see that could be put up on the screen. But I understand there's interest at the council level to hear from members of the public. So I will step aside. And at some point, if you'd like me to walk you through those changes, we can do that. But since we did that in great detail at the work session, I wasn't going to take the time to do that this evening.
I think it would be helpful for our audience if you could do an abbreviated overview of what the substance of that is, so that there's no confusion. As we were discussing earlier, there is all sorts of interesting pieces of information floating around on social media. So if you could help clarify what we're doing, that would be helpful.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, so the first change, I'm looking at the Exhibit A that's in the packet, and the first change was in Chapter 2, Section 2436. This actually responds to a different piece of legislation. It's ORS 195, 500, and 505, and what it required, it actually just amended existing state guidance, state law that requires, at the time it was 24 hours notice, now it's 72 hours notice prior to clearing an established camp, and also imposes now a requirement on the city to hold that personal property seized for 30 days for no cost and to make it available within the city boundaries. So we're doing a very minor tweak to property to be held at expense of owner so that allows the city to waive fees associated with that storage in the event it's the personal property of an unhoused individual. And the next two sections, lodging, Chapter 18, Section 18-61, we're repealing that. It is covered by other provisions of the code, and it prohibited people from lodging in a car, outbuilding, or other place not intended for that purpose. The city already has parking regulations. It already has transient room tax. It already regulates uses of city private property throughout the city. This was a unwieldy and unnecessary provision in your code, this current law notwithstanding. So this is just a good cleanup effort, I think. That was the council's direction. We're repealing the local curfew provision because there is a state curfew that law enforcement already cites to. There was a modification of, I can't remember exactly, an hour. And so it just seemed safer to repeal the local curfew and eliminate that as a basis for a challenge, a local challenge, when you can rely on state law, accomplish pretty much the same purpose, and dodge any associated challenge from unhoused minors. We modified the two sections that pertain to exclusion, either from city parks and drug-free zones. The primary change that we made was to ensure that any exclusion order in the event that citations had been issued for illegal behavior, those exclusions either from the downtown core and the drug-free zone or parks will be stayed in the event of an appeal, and those appeals will go not to the city manager but to municipal court. And we set some timelines associated with that to ensure that it's reasonable for city staff to prepare responding to those appeals, and individuals who might be appealing those exclusions will be heard in a reasonable amount of time. Parks, we modified the definition, we narrowed it so that it now means a park. So the existing language was park, playground, swimming pool, all field recreation center, or any other area in the city. And it used to say owned or used by the city and devoted to active or passive recreation. There was a lot of conversation around how to modify that so that it isn't too broad and it isn't too narrow. And the decision was to stick with the preliminary portion of the amendment and then tag on to the end any other area in the city identified as a park by executive order of the city manager, which ensures that your city can turn on the dime in the event that more areas need to be opened up to unhoused camping, but allows you to have camping restrictions on property when it isn't merited by your unhoused population. That's a complicated concept, so ask me if you have questions. Similarly, there are restrictions on overnight use of Riverview Park, and we added a provision at the end. Those restrictions are standing. They will continue to prohibit camping except in the payment of a fee unless they're modified by the city manager pursuant to an executive order. So that's another delegation from the council to the city manager to allow the city to accommodate to changed circumstances in the event there needs to be, but otherwise, current restrictions on Riverview Park, those camping areas will still be subject to a fee and permits. The last section, section 26-378, we talked about those changes, similar to the exclusion from drug zones. And the final section was the parking time limits. It previously was very ambiguous. It was setting times set by council resolution. So what we did instead was we inserted a 72-hour limit on parking, which would limit any vehicle from being parked in any location within the city for over 72 hours, unless you modify that, either lengthen it or shorten it by council resolution. Again, building in flexibility, but also including some certainty for anybody who's reviewing your code to determine what rights do you have, what rights do the public have, and city rights of way.
Questions for our legal counsel at this point? Thank you for the synopsis. I think that was very helpful to clarify what we're doing to match the state law that we have to have done. Or is there public comment that needs to be made at this time? I don't see. Go ahead, come forward. Go ahead, so they can hear. Thank you.
My name's Chet Graham. I'm a local realtor involved with the Brandy Meadows subdivisions that we have going over here. I admit I'm not the sharpest pencil in the box, but is this saying that the green spaces that were asked to provide in the new subdivisions are now available for homeless camps for 72 hours at a time?
Yeah, I'm going to allow this so it's clarifying. Go ahead.
So the answer is no. The 72 hours applies to city rights of way, developed, improved streets and sidewalks.
Okay.
There is actually already code. So I didn't talk about the code provisions that already exist that we're not amending, and there's already a prohibition from us constructing sidewalks. There's this now revised and clarified parking after 72 hours. And greenways, if it's a park, then there's prohibition of no camping. So staff went through and did an inventory of city-owned property that is not going to be regulated by this, but the majority of city-owned property will be regulated.
And of course, I'm confused again. So basically, no. So we do a green space where there's a park that's about, or for instance, the walking trail by the river won't all of a sudden have a homeless camp by the new construction that we're trying to put in for the city. Thank you.
And let's look at, so it's clearer if you look at activities prohibited under chapter 26. Oh, I'm sure you have that. But overnight use of parks, it's unlawful for any person to set up tents or other temporary shelter or use house trailers, campers, RVs, or automobiles for the purposes of overnight camping in any city park, and then it's without first obtaining a permit. So
if Kenneth says it's okay, I'm okay with it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Appreciate that.
I just want to be clear for the record that there are unregulated spaces, not including your green spaces, just to make sure that you understand, everybody understands.
I'll get you, Sarah.
You did a very careful balancing of the unhoused population currently.
I'll get you.
Making sure there's available unregulated space for sitting, lying, sleeping, keeping warm and dry, but keeping the spaces that had intent for public use available for the intended public use.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Are there other people, and I see you, Sarah. Let me get the rest of the public comment done. You won't forget. Additional. Come forward, and if you could, if that can be. Okay. We're being a little flexible here on how we're getting this done, but I think it's helpful.
So last year, we lived like a block and a half from Muth Arts, and we had a situation for like 4 or 5 months where we had 3 to 4 people living on a parking strip and on both sides, and a couple of them appeared to be mentally ill, and they were yelling at children and at people coming down the street trying to get to Muth Arts to buy food and stuff. So I think that you're trying to clarify things so that you can address and get these people to where they need to be in a quicker fashion, so they're not there for months. And that's, applaud this. So that's basically the intent of what's going on now.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. And if you
I
let Karen know,
really appreciate it.
before you leave tonight, talk to Karen and she'll get, anybody else need to say anything? Okay, Sarah, Counselor Joe.
Yes, Carrie, can you just clearly state the properties identified for houseless sleeping that you're not gonna restrict? Because there were two,
I can't do that,
or can it?
but yeah, sorry, I don't have a map in front of me. And so the goal really is, right now, and I understand that is critical, so it's important.
Yeah, people want to know which spaces are we talking about here, because we keep saying we're protecting this space and we're protecting that space, but you know that there are two spaces that you're not protecting, so can we just make it clear on the record?
So, we discussed two spaces at the work session. Since the work session, there's been some question on my space, and I have to do some more digging on that. At this point, I believe it is still available. However, I want to clarify that as I do some more digging.
And then would that mean opening up another space?
Well, it would depend.
Because we
balance this based upon how many homeless we have.
Mhm.
So if we have a number of homeless, then we would actually have to go with their space. At this particular juncture, the last I heard from our issue is we do not have large homeless, visible homeless.
Right, he said 0 at the meeting, I think, yeah.
So this is all about the one space that we do own that is available and is not currently parked is on Lyle
Ash and Polk, okay.
There's another on Karen is at Gun Club, and that one is in question, so.
Because of the flood zone? That's right by the high school, right?
No, it's by the bridge.
By the bridge, okay.
Additional questions for staff at this point?
I have a question.
Counselor Roden.
So Sunset Park has been taken out of that because we put up signs?
It's a park.
Right, but there was no signs at the last meeting. And then, but I just want to make sure, I thought we were making sure that all the signs were placed.
Oh, to identify it as a park?
Right.
I believe that's part of what's going on in parks, but I don't hear it.
But it is a park.
But it is a park.
And then my second question is, if we are to have these areas designated for camping, since our meeting, Portland, and I know, trying to copy Portland, I should worry about myself, but they now have a ban on camping from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. where they have to disassemble their camping and pick it up. If the city of Portland can do this, can the city of Independence do this as well, so that we can make it as difficult as possible to be homeless here in our community?
Okay. I'm gonna caution us all, we don't want to make this difficult. That's not the goal. The goal is to be reasonable. And we want to make it difficult, that is giving a basis to claim our rules or our regulations are unreasonable.
I'll amend my words then to say reasonable. Can we reasonably do what Portland has done and ban daytime camping from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.?
Yeah, so you have so many policy choices. You can regulate based on location, you can regulate based on time. It's just that the totality of everything you're doing needs to be reasonable. And I'm sorry, now I know what I was gonna say. So the problem with the time restrictions is that usually for smaller municipalities, you do not have the law enforcement capacity or the public works capacity to ensure that any individual is moving within a 12 period of time, a 24-hour period of time. 72 hours is getting reasonable potentially, but I know that the chief and Cheryl both were saying we can't monitor this on a daily basis and get all of the rest of our work done. And so location, based on staff's input, recommendations to monitor location as opposed to time. We could reverse tracks, but I wouldn't do it without working closely with staff.
So what we have here at this point is we have an ordinance that we need to get in place to follow the state law that requires us to have this in place by July 1. And anything that we want to do in the further is further along. And so I'd like us to move forward on this ordinance. If I don't want to step on anybody, but I want to keep us moving. Is that okay? Okay.
Portland has very, very, very good markets. And in this desert, and it's such page of like.
There you go. So if I can move forward here, this is an action item, and we have to go through the ordinance. So if we could do that, I would appreciate it.
I move to read the proposed ordinance, Council Bill 2023-02, in full as the text is contained in the council packet for the first time.
That's a motion.
Second.
A second by Councilor Morton. Discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed. Motion carries. Karen, you get to read all of this.
An ordinance amending Independence Municipal Code, IMC 2-436, property to be held at expense of owner, IMC 18-169, procedure, IMC 18-170, appeal and variance, IMC 26-372, definitions, IMC 26-378, exclusion for parks, IMC 32-153, parking time limits, adopting IMC 26-379, park exclusion appeal and variance, and repealing IMC 18-61, lodging, and IMC 18-109, curfew, to ensure compliance with the requirements of ORS 195.505 and 195.530.
Okay, so the next motion, please.
I move to read the proposed ordinance, Council Bill 2023-02, for the second time by title only.
Motion, second by Martin Willis. Discussion.
I have a discussion. I wanted to say this the first time, but
Go ahead.
I didn't. So my concern is if we move forward with this tonight, we still don't know where the open places are that people can go to because we don't know the answers to that yet. So I'm concerned with moving forward, right? Because you don't know if the 2 spaces are being allowed.
I heard 2 identified.
Yes.
So 2 for sure.
One for sure, potentially, but given that you don't have a large population, you don't necessarily need our physical population. And then that second one, it could very possibly be 1 for sure.
And then my other 2 concerns were, is there anybody on the council interested in banning daytime camping from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.?
I am.
So
What I'd like to suggest is, rather than trying to fold that into this, because we have some timetables, we can talk about that, and I can ask for staff to make some thoughts on that at a future date, if that's okay.
So we're going to approve this and then hope that that comes up in the future.
Well, we can ask staff to,
I have direction from the council to bring this to you.
any objection to that conversation in the future?
I'm sorry, can you say that? Say it again.
Having the time discussion in the.
Having a time to have a thoughtful discussion rather than just doing this at this point. And I don't hear anybody objecting to doing that at letting staff have a chance to dig into the weeds of this. Any objection? Okay. So I do have a second motion here, and so we've had some discussion. All in favor of the motion to read the proposed ordinance by title only? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. You get to do it again, Karen.
An ordinance amending Independence Municipal Code, IMC 2-436, property to be held at expense of owner, IMC 18-169, procedure, IMC 18-170, appeal and variance, IMC 26-372, definitions, IMC 26-378, exclusion for parks, IMC 32-153, parking time limits, adopting IMC 26-379 Park Exclusion Appeal and Variance, and repealing IMC 18-61 Lodging and IMC 18-109 Curfew to ensure compliance with the requirements of ORS 195.505 and 195.530.
Thank you. And the third motion, please.
I move to adopt the proposed ordinance, Council Bill 2023-02.
Second.
Motion second, discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed. Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Bill as passed and will be assigned ordinance number 1607.
Council general announcements. 4th of July is coming, so if you want to volunteer to sell wristbands, talk to Karen, she will help you. Anything else from other folks?
I want to thank the folks for turning out tonight.
Thank you.
We don't always have quite so full a chamber, so thank you for your interest and participation in local government.
Carrie, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for all your counsel during that work session. It's a difficult subject, and I know you advise more cities than just Independent, so I'm sure you've been very, very busy.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
That's legal?
Make the motion?
Thank you. We're adjourned. Have a pleasant evening, folks.